Okay, this is a Fologram bending tutorial. I'm about to send you and share with you these 3 files, and let me show you how to use this. So first, let's just open this Rhino file called master. This file is set it up in millimeter, so if you have been working with different units, please make sure that your model is in millimeter before you bend it or use this file. And make sure that it's it's on the 000 position, above 000 position. So 000 will be basically where is the table top. So in this file, you will see several curves. You will have your own version of it, and then you will see this object or layer with the bender geometry. We have a radius bender. If you are using radius bender, we are still modeling it, but it will be, I will share that later. But let's say this is the bender and it's centered to the position that we are, where the bend is happening. So we will always model our bender to that point, position. That is the 000. And then here is our interface. So this is something that I want everybody to design your own based on the relationship with the bender. Maybe you can say, okay, I want my interface to be around here. That's totally fine. So model any interface that you want in relationship with the bender location. And it has to be set in millimeter. Alright, so now I have set it up like this. So it's above the bender a little bit, and then there is this slot to show the text, and then there are a few buttons, and these kind of things are decorative. So these are decorative, but these are the buttons. Actually, it's gonna be interactive, so I'm gonna show you how to use that. Okay, so these were the models, and then this is the QR code. So you have to bring your model to this exact file, because if we are generating QR code every time, it's gonna give you a different QR code, which means you have to print differently. In this case, I'm going to just use one QR code that I generated here. Then I'm going to print a bunch of them. And whenever we are positioning our workstation, for example, if you are using this QR code to position it in the welding table, I'm going to still position this one, print this one, and then position it, and you will have the same relationship. So anyways, just beware that you have to always, before you make anything, just use this file, master Rhino file, so you can use the same QR code that I print and tape on different tables. So we will talk about that a little bit later. But for the bending, this is the setting. So there are 2 things. One is designing the interface in relation to the bender, and when you're positioning it, you want to position your model on the tabletop or wherever that, and then your QR code will be always snapped to 000. So that's something you wanna aware of. Okay, so let's get the Grasshopper running and bring this master Grasshopper file in. There are lots of things going on here, but it's very clear. So one thing you want to do, so if you see this Grasshopper file, you see a lot of things, but don't worry about anything that are purple. Only thing you want to change is this red thing, red bubbles, which I'm going to explain to you right now. Okay, so this should be also red. Let me just change this color. And this should be also yours. Yeah, so only these ones, those inputs you want to work with, and you might want to also work with these output, which is really simple. It's about changing some colors. Okay, so the first input, what are they? So you have all these curves, right, as are really nice smooth curves, but in order to make them, we need to divide them into several kinky points, right, because we need to bend them. And but to start with, we also need to set up the order. So if you want to just have them all randomly selected, that's also fine. You can just select all of your lines. If you don't have anything, just put them here, right click and say set multiple curves, and then just drag it here. Then everything works still. But this will give you a random order. You see, like this one is number 4, and this one is number 17, and suddenly this one is number 13. So okay, so how do I order them more with my intention, right? So you can, of course, you can right click here first, and then say set multiple curves, and then you can click them in order. That's one way to go. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if I do that, it's going to give you, yeah, as I selected, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's great, but that it means you have to be very careful when selecting, right? Sometimes that kind of things happen. Okay, so this thing is helping. Actually, this sort order part is really helpful, but you might want to do something before you input this thing. So what the method we are doing is we go to our Rhino file, we check every single line's property here, right? And then we are going to name them with the number of the order that we want to build or label it. So I label this as 0. I labeled this one as 1, this one as 2. So for example, if I want to make another curve, I can label this 55, for example. Just so you want to manually name your file. Okay, so let's say I think I had all of these files named. Okay, so let me see. This one I named it as 12. This one I named it as 11, so on and so forth. I named this as 10, 9. Okay, so you want to bring your model. Let me just show you as an example. For example, let's go to one of our model. For example, let's say this one. Okay, so I have this model, for example, Control C, Control V, and bring all of this one. Okay, so I'm gonna ungroup this. There are lots of lines, of course, but I can start to label this. So I select this one as 0. Select this one as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and then you do that, so on and so forth. So I'm going to, let's say, I'm going to only test these. So this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I said 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That was 0. You can say this one 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Okay, that's all good. But we cannot really tell if they have a number, right? So in order to test that, so make sure that these are your input curves. Right click and set multiple curves and use this one. So there are two things. So this one helps you to display label names. So you can directly connect this one to here, or you can just put it here. So it does. Okay, so it's having some problem. Don't worry. Yeah. So what it does is this one is giving you all the numbers as a display. So 1. There is something wrong about this. So there are curves in order. These curves are in order. Let's see this. Let me see. There are 20 curves. I have 20 curves, and then these 20 curves have an order now. Then if I connect this one, it's showing these tags in their center position. So you can also move this around. Oh, there is this kind of thing, that's why. So there was these weird segments that were not really counted, that's why. So it's kind of utilizing the name and sorting them as a number. So this is a curve 0, 1. I see. So there was some problem here because there were some like little small segments that we don't really have to worry about. For example, that kind of small segment, we are not gonna cut them and weld them, but it's a easy fix for a welding because you can still accommodate some differentiations. Okay, so but if you are really if you want to really see the number and order, you can utilize this group, and then this sync tag is something that you are going to see in HoloLens or your Fologram app. This thing is something you can bake. So it says bake this, right? So you can bake this to kind of have this in your model. So you can maybe print it, you can keep it, or whatever you want. So let me just bring this back to this script, right click. Okay, and then I'm going to use this to bake it to see my label in Rhino. These tags are not going to be seen in your Grasshopper or in your HoloLens or Fologram in AR environment, but here is something you can see. If you don't want to bother, sorry, if you don't want to bother that, you can still have these, and you can still see the HoloLens synced text. So the Fologram text tag is set in millimeters, so you will see this exactly at this scale. So that's really good. So you can adjust the text size if you want. So you can do it right click and set a number here. Right click, set number, and then you can change this number to change the font size. So that's the first thing. So you want to set up the order. But let's say if you don't want to bother making the names, you can just directly select all of them, set multiple curves here, and then just directly put them here. So you see, you don't have to really organize that, and then use this one to show your synced tags. Okay, so that's the first thing, order. I will still use my manually named order. That's the first thing I want to do. And then you can also try to change these parameters to see how accurate you want to build your model. So for example, if you have really sharp creases here, you might want to change the division length differently. So this is something you can actually go, this is millimeter again. So this is the distance, the interval distance between this point to this point. So I am currently dividing all of these curves based on this distance. So in every 2 centimeter right now, or 23 millimeter, I am bending another arc. So basically more division, more accurate, but of course we don't have to bend so much segment, or we couldn't really also do so many segments, probably due to some clash of the bender. So that's the segment. So you can really play with this to see how much less can you bend, but also being more accurate, as accurate to the truthful original geometries as possible. Alright, so what this script here in this line, what it does is trying to rebuild the curve into line and arc segment. So you can see that here, right? So it has a line and arc. So arc is somewhere that we can bend with the radius bender, and it's going to be bent like here, right? So right now the setup right now is 100 millimeter radius. But let's see. So okay, so around this much, it's giving me a good amount of curvature. Maybe we can send them off later, but of course, like more curve, more division, it's more accurate, of course. And then the filler radius, you can also change it, since maybe some of you really want to test it with radius bender. We don't have the model set it up here yet, but I think some subtle curves, to be honest, we can also use kink bender, so sharp bender like this one. So for that, we can change this radius, bending radius. So the sharp bender, which is in our model, it only bends really sharp angle. So we can kind of set it as 4, and then we just bend it very sharp, which is also possible. Okay, and then the rolled radius, we are using a 5/16 inch diameter rod, which is about 8 millimeter as a diameter, so it becomes 4 millimeter. But it's not super accurate because we are working on millimeter. But it should be fine. We'll test it. So that's the rod. So if you are changing the rod to a thicker one, you wanna just adjust this. You wanna adjust this based on your material, all right? But we are going to use 4 as default for now. Okay. So that part is understood, right? So how do you regenerate these curves into segments? Okay, so the next part is about bender. So just come in here and go ahead and just change some parameters around to see. It's really I think I'm quite confident that this is very clear. There is this thing that you want to set up. So there's this bend center. So you see that there is the center of the bender. So we are going to always have a QR code printed and sticked on the table. Yeah. And then you can actually set this wherever you want. And for different bender or different welding processes, you need different position to set this up, right? So this one is centered for sharp bender. I think for round bender we will have different position, and then we'll just go ahead and measure the distance, and then put that point in here. So that's the bend center. For example, if you measured the bender, the round bender, probably it's somewhere here, not that high, on the edge of this, and then we can set one point, and then you will be able to get there, right? So if you have to move it around, you can change this position. And there's also this rotation thing, so you can also rotate your whole setup or your whole workstation, but I will always try to get it accurate as possible to the 0, and then make sure that your QR code X direction is perpendicular to your workstation and stuff. Okay, so that is one thing. What is this bend direction? Sometimes the bender cannot accommodate your curvature, so sometimes you might need to flip it and then bend the other direction. I don't think we will have too many heavy problems like that, but sometimes you might want to stick to this direction, but sometimes you have to bend in that other direction, so that there is this option. So you understand that. Okay, and then so here, that's the probably the most important part. So let me show you that we have two index. One is the part index and one is the bend index. this index is what you are going to control with the interface. What does it mean? So for example, which part am I going to bend right now? Of course, you are going to start from the 0, 1. 0, 1. You want to do it in order if you want, right? Then you can change that part's index here. But if you are going to use the interface to do that, you want to change this to hook this up to this thing. So you are getting this value not from your slider, but instead from your clicking behavior from the HoloLens. But right now I'm not hooked up with HoloLens, so I'm going to still use my slider. But when you are ready to test all of this, you want to change this to this and then ready to work with a HoloLens. Okay, so now I'm not using HoloLens for this description, but if you are going to use HoloLens, make sure that you change this. Otherwise, it's not, even if you click anything, it's not going to change anything. Okay, so now I'm going to just demonstrate with this slider. So if you select, so you have, if you have 20 parts, you will see, if you, yeah, you will see how they are growing in order, right? And then this is the bend index, which means, okay, now I'm bending number 4. Okay, now I'm bending number 4. How many bends that I'm currently doing, right? So that's how you see it. So you see that when you are here, you see 2 curves, right? So what does this mean is this pink thing is a position that you want to position your material before bend, and then you want to match to this green position after you bend. So you're just bending that much, but that is a good guide to help you to position your bend. Okay, and then what is this toggle true or false? So if you say true here, it's actually showing you the entire band position from 0 to 1, 0 to everything for this part 4 band. What does it mean? So if I see this now here, I already see all of this band is not clashing with my bender at all, right? Which means it's good to go. But some weird curvature, if you have some weird curvature, it will prevent you to be able to bend and it will clash. Let me show you. So let me give you a really problematic example where sometimes it goes to let me give this a number as well. 40. This is going to give me part. I'm going to find my last part. So okay, so this one is actually this one. But you'll see if I change this, it changes, right? So you see that it's kind of, still, it's not clashing with my bender unless this is clashing here. So I cannot bend these curvature. Let me show you what that means. So if I start this bending, if I toggle false, okay. So this one this one is totally fine to bend, right? This one is fine, 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 fine. Fine, it looks fine. Fine. Now it's kind of turning back. Okay, it's still fine. It's coming in. Okay, it might clash with my bender from here onwards. Look at that. It's already clashing, which means I cannot position my material next to my bender. So this one is totally problematic. This one is working. So, but you see, like it's clashing inside this, which means you need to have your material well flexible enough to be pushed around there while you're bending this position. But this is a metal, you know. You want to be more accurate, so you don't want to have anything clashing with your bender or your table. Sometimes it goes down to table, you know. So for example, if your table is lower than this point is definitely trying to clash with your table. So you want to toggle true and see if this curvature is bendable. See, I'm always I see already like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bends minimum are not bendable, which means it's not producible. Alright, so toggle this on and off. Toggle this on and check each of these. So from 1, okay, 1 is bendable. 2, 3 is bendable. 4 bendable. 5 still, it's crazy, but probably bendable, but it's penetrating to the table right here. So that is considered not bendable unless we need to move our bender. Okay, or 6. Okay, so these long ones are very problematic, which we might need to cut them into segments. So there are different solutions to different problems. But yeah, this one is bendable. This one's bendable. Yeah, so this one is bendable. It's not clashing with bender, not clashing with table. Okay, short ones are easier. This one is clashing, but I guess it's not a big problem. I think we can push it a little bit because the material has a little bit of flexibility. Yeah. So yeah, things like that. So you want to check that by toggling true to check if things, all of your curves are bendable. All right. Okay. That's one thing. And then this is something that you don't want to touch, but sometimes you have some problem with your bending position in HoloLens. So this allows you to do a minor adjustment in millimeter scale. All right. So if you really need some minor adjustments while you're bending, it's like my HoloLens is like flickering and you shifted me a little bit, then you can use this one to move it around a little bit. But I don't really recommend you to do that. You always go back, you want to go back to your QR code and re-snap it. But it might be helpful if you need this. Okay. And then this is the bender geometry. You also have in the Rhino file, but I also saved it here. The outcome is the bender location, this is just a simulation which is not going to be shown in HoloLens anyways, but it's helpful for you to relate your other digital models in the actual space, right? Okay, so now let's go to the hologram part. So in Fologram, these are all about interactive stuff and something that you can see from Hololens. So the first thing is a tag. It's a text tag. So it's these two things. So whenever you tap these buttons, you will have these things moving up or down. So you can you can minor adjust this tag position X, Y, and Z. Alright, so I designed this interface to accommodate this position, and then you can also set the font size and the line interval between these two. So that's that. Then this one, so don't worry about, I told you don't worry about the purple group, only worry about the red group. But red group is something that you really need to come in and change things. So what are these? These are the decorative interface. So this is something you want to model it in 000 position, in this position. So because they will get moved eventually, I'm going to use this script to get them moved to this position, this exact position that is above the actual bender. But when you are modeling, you model it here based on the relationship that you want to have it with the bender. Alright, so I modeled it literally as a nerves, and then because if you hook this up to HoloLens with Fologram sync object, it's going to make this into mesh. And I realized that after I see this one in HoloLens, it was looking like something even worse than this one. So I see a lot of kink and everything. So just before you give it to HoloLens, if you have a lot of like curvature or something you want, it's not as simple geometry as these ones, please make them into meshes. So for this case, I had to, let me bake this one and show you. I had to separate this into few chunks in order to make them smooth and clean. Otherwise, I was seeing like way worse meshes in interface in HoloLens because they're trying to make meshes. No, so in HoloLens, it only shows mesh. It doesn't show nerves surfaces at all. So it kind of, in their background, in a black box, it's converting everything into low poly mesh. And most of the cases, a lot of like nice curvatures are kind of gone missing, and you will see very bad version of your own B-wrap nerves surfaces. So I always have my interface designed in B-wrap or nerves, very clean, but I always convert them into a high resolution mesh that I don't see like all of these bad kinks. So I make sure that HoloLens doesn't translate my curvature wrongly. So that's something. So you will see that I always kept one B-wrap but also have a mesh version. So I'm always using the mesh version. So if you want to have so I made two kind of groups. So this is decorative, which doesn't have any interaction requirements. So for example, my frame, these geometries are decorative. I have this kind of two different colors, for example. So I want this one to be maybe much brighter and like wider. And then, so if you want to add more geometry or replace your geometry, just copy this, Control C, Control V, sorry. Control C, Control V, these three things, Control C, Control V. And then Okay, I'm gonna, for example, I'm gonna make another nice interface, whatever it is. Also, this one is actually HoloLens tested, so it's a recommended size. So I also I'm sending you this file so you can generally follow this size. So if this button is something that you want to add, you can right click and add this geometry to HoloLens, and you can also change the color to something else, whatever you want. Then you will see that thing here. Okay, so that's how you add more and more buttons and decoration. So these are decorative ones, they're not interactive, but what if you want to make it interactive? So you will now see 5 buttons here. So I was actually being more careful and putting them in order. So let me just delete this one and show you. Okay, so the first one is part up. So I put this one in, part down, and this is bend up, bend down, and there's a reset button. And then if I want to add one more button here, okay, so another, sorry, I can say a geometry, and then I can say what can this, anyways, it's a button. What shall we try? For example, on and off. Let's say it's an on and off button. If you want to add one more button, you just go here, add one more to the merge. So now you can delete the last one, and then you can set one geometry. So now you have it, right? So now you have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this has a number 5 state or index. So you don't have to worry about any of this until you see this state. So what does it do is, okay, what does this do? What this does is this button part up, it does this. If I tap it, let's say tap it, it's clicking it, it will activate this group, right? And then if I tap this one, it's going to activate this group. So that's why you need to set these things in order to set what you want these exact buttons to do, to what kind of event do you want these buttons to trigger. So for example, so now I added this on and off button, right? And then maybe when I set it, I have to add one more state, and then I have to name it as 5. If you keep on adding anything, it's gonna give you weird names. You have to change that name to the number, because that is taking the index of what you're tapping. So yeah, you have to change this to names. Okay, now in order to utilize that button, I prepared 2 geometries. One is with everything in, one with only the plate. So we are going to use that button to turn on and off this thing. So I'm going to have these 2 geometries off, geometry on. So when it's off, I want this to only show this thing. So right click, set one geometry. Then when it's on, I want to show this one. I already merged this mesh into one geometry, so I just I don't have to deal with all the parts. So okay, so when it's off, I want to show only this. When it's on, I want to show all of this. Okay, so how do we do that? We want to create a global value. So use both set and get global value, and we are going to change this name, say on off. Make sure that on off. Make sure that these two names should be exactly the same. And then whenever I get this on and off, I'm going to invert Boolean. So whenever this is on, it will become off. So whenever I click on that button, this will happen. So that's how you set that behavior here. Alright, so what do we do with that on and off value? So once this is clicked, there will be an on and off value as a Boolean. So let's bring a panel to see how it changes. So if I click, if I click here, it should happen. So we now need to change this one to dynamic update. Then if I click now, it's gonna change the false and true value every time I initiate this. This will be get initiated when I click in Hololens or Fologram app. Whenever I click this new button here. Okay. So what do we want to do with this false value, for true and false value, which I'm going to use to display or choose from one of these. Because true and false, it translates as index as 0 and 1. So when I'm on 0, I'm going to only display this one. When I'm on 1, I'm going to display this one. So I can just simply use list item, use this list and this index, because true and false changes to 0 and 1. And then I use this geometry as a resulting outcome. So I can hide all of these. So let's see, whenever this is false, it's showing this geometry. When it's true, it's choosing this geometry. So let's see, if I click, see, now I have click, now I have that work. Alright, so that's how you add another button. You can add any button, and if you need any kind of other interfaces, please let me know and we can work on it together. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. And I wish everybody can really work with this and design some interesting, nice looking interface that supports your fabrication process, and use this one to really test and pre-check all of your curvature can be bent virtually. Alright, cool. Thank you very much. A few last thing I want to say that you want to also change the colors of how you want to have your geometries look like. So these were interface colors, right? So you determine the colors in the sync object, but you also have these. So these colors are the actual geometries. So I was setting their thickness and the colors here. So these you can obviously see that the pink ones I decided, but you can really try to read this one. Let me just change this also to the red color so you can really have a look. So this is the original. Let me display this. So this is mesh, original mesh as a pipe, really thin pipe. And this is the division points. This is a bender ring, which is this one. This is a bender center. You can also change the colors of all of these, right? And this is the mesh original position, the one that we are bending currently. So if you see that one will actually change according to how much you have bent. Alright, so that's there. Then what is this? This is before bend. So that's a lot of bend, but you position your bend geometry there and then you bend until there. That's a guide, right? So you want to show, I was showing this one as pink and this one is green. You can change this color as well. Then this one is the actual bent position, and then this one I'm actually showing them as two overlaid geometry. If you see the Hololens, you'll see immediately that you see this central thin lines as a thicker line, and then this one as a transparent outer pipes. So I was trying to create a helpful guide to also see the central points and the outer lines as the transparent ones. But if you need something also for this pink line, we can also set up something like that as well.